let's send it over to Connor. Connor, take it away, blow our minds, do what you do.
Okie dokie. Well, I actually kind of enjoy like having conversations. So I do have a little presentation just to like, you know, get us all started off, but I'm going to keep this pretty short and then we can do some more Q&A type stuff if that's what everyone feels like. So, can everyone see the right screen? Is it the presentation?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to talk about building marketplaces with no-code tools. So my name's Connor. I'm originally from New Zealand. Now I live in Canada. I run the Unicorn Factory, which I'll be showing you a bit about today, but I also have a YouTube channel where I also go into a bit of detail about how I build these types of things with the different tools. And I think it will be particularly useful for anyone who is, you know, is an ideas person but can't code. That's kind of who I was. And I always found it very frustrating that I couldn't turn my ideas into actual things. And so when I discovered no-code tools, it was kind of like a little bit of a game changer. So instead of showing you slides of the Unicorn Factory, I thought I'd actually just show you what it actually looks like. And so it's a website that New Zealand businesses, but you know, I also don't mind if like people from other countries use this, can go and basically find local freelancers. And so it's pretty self-explanatory. You can kind of just jump on there. There are a whole bunch of different profiles about freelancers. They can upload projects that they've worked on. They can have their own little bio. And then if a client wants to work with them, they can just fill out the contact form. And then I automatically send all of the information that a client submits onto this particular freelancer. Now, this is kind of how it all started for me. It was just basically a bunch of landing pages with different freelancers who I shared a co-working space with. And now it's kind of evolved into being the biggest freelancer marketplace in New Zealand. I don't know if it's technically the biggest, but definitely like probably the most known one. I'll show you some of the features. I built a little client freelancer dashboard. So we have a little job board where clients who don't know who exactly they should reach out to, they can basically post a job and then the different freelancers can come in here, have a little read about what's going on. Oh, turns out I haven't subscribed to any membership plan, so I've been redirected away from the job board. But basically the way it works is you can just kind of jump in here. You can have a little bit of a read about what the project's about, and then you can apply for a job. We've got designers on here, marketers, web developers. We've got like virtual assistants. Basically anyone that lives in New Zealand that wants to offer certain freelance services can kind of use this platform. Also, for some of you who might already be familiar with no-code tools, I also built a little, I've been experimenting with an additional little dashboard using a no-code tool called Glide, which basically allows you to build nice little interactive dashboards. And I'm currently using this as a way for freelancers to kind of keep track of the inquiries that they're receiving. So when a freelancer gets a lead, they'll be able to basically leave a review on how things are going. And so they can kind of jump in here, they can kind of update the status to basically say, hey, how did it turn out with this client? You can kind of specify all of that. And so it's a really good way for them to basically keep track of how they're doing on the platform, but it's also a really good way for us to kind of see how effective the Unicorn Factory is and all that type of stuff. Yeah, and so like I said, all of this here started with me discovering no-code tools. Now, the three main tools that I used to get started were Webflow, which is basically a tool that you can use to design a website. Then we've got Airtable, which I essentially use as my database tool. And then there's also automation tools. Now, right here, I have Zapier because that is the one that I started off with. But since then, things have kind of grown a bit. I now use a different automation tool called Make. And so all up, these are the tools that I am using in 2022. It's absolutely not necessary to use all of these tools, but because I also make YouTube videos, I like to experiment with different tools so I know what to talk about. And so a few of them have kind of stuck around and have some form of use for the Unicorn Factory in one way or the other. I won't go into too much detail about each and every individual tool, but I have some videos on my YouTube channel where I kind of go in depth about some of these different tools. I do like reviews, and I also do tutorials on things like Airtable or Make or Parabola and all those kind of things. So if you do want to learn a little bit more about it, just jump on YouTube, search for the tool and you'll be able to see what's going on.
What was the icon under JetBoost?
Placid. So Placid is a tool that allows you to create images based off data that sits in your Airtable base. So I use it to create open graph images, and I use it to create social posts essentially. So if you go like onto our Instagram, we've got all these like social posts that all look the same. They just have different names and different images and stuff like that. It's a really great way to like do social media marketing, like creating content at scale by just using dynamic data. It helps. And so that's the tool that I use for that. I actually did a workshop on the Automate All the Things YouTube channel 3 weeks ago, where we went over how to use Placid. Colleen Brady, who is a legend of the game, by the way, went through the entire process of explaining it all. And it's a phenomenal workflow to learn. I mean, if you are completely new to no-code and you want to see how powerful it is, and you want to impress your bosses at work, learn how to automate social images with tools like Placid. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty mind-blowing stuff.
Just curious, what are the 4 logos on the right hand corner?
These ones?
S, yeah, the 4 ones. Yeah.
So the S is Stripe. So Stripe is what I use for payments. The one in the corner with the speed dial is JetBoost, which is a tool that you can use specifically in Webflow to do search and filtering. Now, there are a lot of different tools that you can use, but at the moment, this is what I use for JetBoost. So you can see, you can do like filtering and it hides certain people, that kind of stuff. Then there's that's Placid. And then this one here is Parabola, which is an automation tool that you can use, which is very similar to that like Zapier and Make. The main difference between Parabola and those ones is that Parabola is mostly used for bulk updating information. So instead of doing one record, updating one particular thing at a time, you just do like entire sets of records at once. And yeah, it's a really cool tool. So yeah, I actually discovered this before this talk when I was doing research. I have never shown someone what one of the earlier versions of the Unicorn Factory looked like, and I discovered it in my Webflow project. So instead of showing you what this looks like inside of Webflow, I actually want to show you what one of the earlier versions looked like, so you can kind of see how it evolves over time. And so this is Webflow. This was actually the first freelancer that I ever added to the Unicorn Factory. To today, he is probably the most successful one. He has made a lot of money through the site. And basically, I started off with this with literally like no background in like software development, web development, any of those types of things. The way that I learned Webflow was that I come from a marketing background. I needed to learn how to build landing pages. And I tried a lot of different tools and nothing really stuck. I even did Code Academy and I tried really hard, but it just kind of didn't stick for me. But then I just by chance came across Webflow, and I discovered that you could build landing pages. And one of the features that really sold it for me was that when you create websites in Webflow, what you're actually doing is you're coding visually. And so this is something that a lot of people sometimes don't understand, is that instead of it just being like a random drag and drop tool, you're actually doing what developers are doing, just that you are doing it with components. And so the best thing about this is it actually generates the code for you that looks a bit like this here. And so what really sold this to me was I discovered Webflow, and at the time I was working with 2 developer friends who basically said, you can use whatever like drag and drop tool you want, but not WordPress. Because we can't manage like any of the classes and all that kind of stuff. And so I made the site in Webflow, and then I actually thought I'd trick them by just, instead of like showing them the project in Webflow, I just like took the code and I gave them the code, and I'm like, here's the website, feel free to like edit the code. And they couldn't understand how I did it. And so that day I was like, okay, this tool is legit. And so I basically dived deep into it. There was a project that really inspired the Unicorn Factory called Webflow Experts, which I'm pretty sure Corey's involved with now. It's basically a website that's part of Webflow where you can hire Webflow developers. And they put this blog post out where they explain how they built it. And when I read that blog post, it was probably like one of the most inspiring things, because I was like, wow, I can create like my own little version of Webflow experts for my co-working space. And so I started working away at it. It took me like 2 days to get it set up. It looked dreadful. Like, it didn't even look like this. It looked way worse than this, but it kind of showed me what was possible. And then from there, I went down the rabbit hole. And since now I'm paying like $500 for software. So you can kind of see how things can like get out of control. And so, you know, there's so much to say about Webflow. I think probably the thing that's most interesting to people that want to build like marketplaces or directory sites specifically is that one thing that you can do that's really cool is you can create like template pages like this, and then the information that is displayed on these pages comes from a database that sits inside of Webflow called the CMS. And so basically in here, I've got all of these records of freelancers with, for example, the picture, like the about section, all these types of things. And I can pull all of this information and dynamically place it on this website. And so basically that is how you can create directory pages, by creating all of these like CMS collections and then mapping it to your website designs. And so since I discovered Webflow, things have just gotten better and better and better. There like have been like a whole bunch of companies that have added additional tools that have allowed you to do some really fun things with it. And so yeah, in a nutshell, these tools basically allow people who cannot code, don't come from a design background, to spin up these sites. And yeah, so that is that. I did briefly mention how much I spend on no-code tools. Now, please keep in mind that like I get carried away with these things, but at the moment I'm spending like 550 odd bucks, maybe a little bit more. To be honest, I've decided to stop looking and checking because it is a little bit sad. But like compared to like hiring developers, this is like an absolute steal. And so when I started the Unicorn Factory, I only had to pay for Webflow and for Webflow hosting. I had some like little miscellaneous expenses like the domain and stuff like that. But I could basically get the first version of the Unicorn Factory up and running for like $30 odd. And then I started discovering some other tools that allowed me to like have a more scalable database with Airtable, and then also an automation tool like Zapier. And so you can really get your idea up and running for like $60. And that was really good for me because at the time I had just finished working for a failed startup. So I didn't have a lot of disposable income to spend on no-code tools. And so it was really good that those tools allowed me to get started. Now, I do want to quickly talk a little bit about how the Unicorn Factory makes money, because, you know, these tools don't pay for themselves. The first thing is, when I started the Unicorn Factory, my plan was...
Or do they pay for themselves?
They do pay. Now they pay for themselves. When I started the Unicorn Factory, my plan wasn't actually to build like a marketplace like the Unicorn Factory is now. I wanted to do work for myself. I needed to get work. And instead of just building a normal portfolio website like every other freelancer out there, I just decided, you know what? I'm going to build a directory and I'm going to put myself at the very top. I'm going to give myself a verified badge, and that should really help with getting leads from freelance clients. And let's put it this way. It didn't work as expected, but I did get a little bit of work through the site. So it was quite good. And so basically anyone who's getting started has like a tendency to overcomplicate how you can like monetize your site. Honestly, just starting off by like doing the work yourself is like the fastest way to get a bit of cash for yourself. I also had a freelancer who I had a revenue share agreement with. So whenever a client was looking for a Shopify developer, instead of putting the job onto the job board, I just give it directly to him. And if he ended up closing a deal with that client, he would give me a cut of whatever revenue he made. And that is until today still like one of the best ways that I make money through the website. And that was all possible without having any tech or any of that stuff. Now, as things started to pick up, we had more and more freelancers signing up, and this new tool launched called MemberStack, which basically allows you to set up a membership site. And so I basically my plan was, look, I'm just going to make a membership model, $99 per year or $12 per month. I didn't actually know whether or not people were going to pay me for it, but I just put it out there. And from there, a whole bunch of people who were already freelancers on the Unicorn Factory for free started upgrading their accounts. And basically what they got was if you paid, you could apply for jobs that were on the job board. If not, you couldn't. And so a whole bunch of freelancers would upgrade. And then from there, I'll take the money that they paid me and I'll put it into Facebook ads or into Google ads. And that led to more jobs being posted. And because there were more jobs being posted, more freelancers would upgrade their account. And that kind of model has just kind of worked until today. So like the more freelancers sign up, the more I spend on marketing, and that just leads to more jobs, and that leads to more upgrades. And so that's kind of how I did it for a majority of the time, until I kind of hit like a little bit of a, you know, I was kind of like, had to think of ways to make it even better. And so I actually stopped freelancing myself because I was, to be completely honest, I was getting a little bit over it. And so I kind of doubled down on the Unicorn Factory a bit. So I introduced a new membership model where I just charged a little bit more. And then I also introduced some additional revenue streams, like charging businesses to list their jobs on our job board. And then there were also businesses who wanted me to actually recommend the best of the best. And so I do like consulting sessions with them where I basically help them identify the best freelancer in Webflow in Wellington, and basically do that as like a consulting gig. So that generated a little bit of cash as well. What's next for the Unicorn Factory in terms of making money? I mean, to be honest, like I'm quite relaxed about how I run the Unicorn Factory. For me, the main goal is that people who are starting their freelance journeys get opportunities. So like my dream, like the best thing that I can do is like help someone land their first freelance client. That's like the dream. That's like, that's kind of like what kind of motivates me with this. And so one of the things that I want to do now is I actually want to add resources to the website where I can basically, you know, share things like courses or basically help them close more deals. And then one thing that has kind of evolved over the last few years as well is like, as the brand in New Zealand has grown, it's like a whole bunch of businesses have hit us up for partnerships, like co-working spaces and like SaaS companies that work with freelancers. And so that's been a big part as well. I've kind of been a little bit like relaxed and like laxy-daisy about how I approach it, but now it's becoming a bit more of a, because the platform is like getting to a point where, you know, it's turning into a really good opportunity to have those partnerships. I'm going to be doing that as well. And so, yeah, I think that's about 20 minutes, is it?
That's great.
Yeah, I can go on, but I think, you know, if we want to do some Q&A, leave some time for it.
Yeah. I mean, if there's any salient points that you're like, I think this is an important thing that was coming up later, fire away. Otherwise, I'm sure there's plenty of questions too.
Okay, well, I think there's just one point I'll probably want to make. So, you know, with I think there's like, if I had to like look back at what worked for the Unicorn Factory, is that I chose a very uncontested market. Now, my ambition with the Unicorn Factory was never to become the biggest freelancing marketplace in the world. I was like, there were already platforms out there like Upwork or Fiverr and Toptail and all those kind of things. And it's very hard to compete with companies that are that big. And so I had to kind of figure out, how can I stand out from all of them? And the way that I figured I could stand out from those sites that also operate in New Zealand as well is just by focusing very specific on a local market. And so I was like, you know what, I might not have the most freelancers. I might not have like the most experienced freelancers at time, even though I do think that our freelancers are the bomb, but I can focus on just New Zealand freelancers. And so whenever someone wanted to hire someone locally, I would be your go-to person. And that is kind of how it evolved. It started off in a co-working space, and then it spread into the city that the co-working space was in, and then it turned into the whole country. And, you know, I was lucky with it, I must say, because like a lot of the businesses that I talked to afterwards said, you know, we don't use sites like Fiverr or Upwork because like building a business is pretty personal. We want to be able to talk to someone in the same time zone. And so point I'm trying to make here is, if you do have an idea for like a marketplace or any other business for that matter, starting in a very focused market will give you a huge advantage because you can easily be the best in that particular market. And then from there, it's easy to add on top rather than trying to like pretend to be something like Upwork or Fiverr and like basically facing an uphill battle from there. So that's kind of the main point that I wanted to make. Yeah. Colleen is there. Sorry, I couldn't see anyone because I was actually like looking at the screen.
Yes, Colleen snuck in.
Yeah. So that's the
So I
rundown.
got a question for you.
Yep.
Are you a team of one, or do you outsource any work? Do you have, you said we a couple times. Are there
Yeah.
people helping you? I mean,
I'm a team of one, but I hired a student in Ottawa to do all of the work that I don't want to do. So like honestly, my solution has always been to automate it away or just eliminate it out of the business. And the only thing that I haven't been able to eliminate out of the business is customer support. And so for the longest time, I would just Command Shift A on all of my emails and mark them as read. But then people get angry at me because I never respond to their emails. So I decided that I may as well just hire someone who can answer the emails for me. And so I hired a student in Ottawa. She happens to live in the same city. I actually met her for the first time last week after she worked for me for about a year. But she basically just takes care of all of those things for me. And so technically we are we now, because she's great. She also does all of our social media marketing, so she
wow.
contributes significantly.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, but mostly a company of one. I hire a lot of freelancers off the Unicorn Factory as well. You know,
What do you hire out?
I've hired out Webflow stuff. I mean, like I've hired a web designer. I've hired a branding person. I've hired a Google Ads people. Basically anyone who's going for a rough patch of not getting work on the Unicorn Factory, I hire.
See how great this platform is?
Yeah. You just get hired by me.
I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a whole list of questions, but people can fire like, and so you started simple with just landing pages that you created in Webflow, and it was just like a form. And if you compare where you were then to where you were now, the tool and the system, I mean, like what you showed with Glide and taking the data, like it is magnitudes more complex now than it was at the beginning. And I'm wondering if there is a pattern to that layering of complexity, or if it kind of just slowly happens over time, or were there like big version updates that you did? Or I'm curious how you're layering in the complexity, and if it's just a slow progression, or if you do it in concerted chunks.
So that's a really good question, because when I started, so I have a lot of people that reach out to me about wanting to build marketplaces, and they try to rebuild a lot of the features that I have on the Unicorn Factory. And I'll be honest, it always ends badly, because your product ends up being way too bloated, and like you build half stuff that you don't need. I see it. I see that I did the same thing on my first startup as well. It was like a Tinder for food deals app, and we basically went and looked at all of the best like food apps, and we tried to like re-engineer what they did. It doesn't really work like that. What I did is I started super simple with just landing pages, and I would honestly treat it as a side hustle. I kind of still do today, and I just build the most simplest version of something that would help freelancers get work, and then I'll just stop. I wouldn't add more stuff to it. I would just leave it as it is. And then you reach certain points where things get inconvenient. So the first real inconvenience that happens was like when freelancers started to sign up, they would send me their information by email, and I would then actually type it into the Webflow CMS. And that was cool when I had like 4 people emailing me, but then it started to grow a bit. And when you're doing it for free and you start getting like 7, 8 people who want you to add their information to the Webflow CMS, and then they want to update this, it gets a little bit tedious. And so then you kind of start looking for ways to solve that. And so that's how something like Zapier gets introduced. And that's how something like another big thing was like things started getting messy in the Webflow CMS, and like people started complaining about this information missing or whatever. So I needed to get a tool that actually allowed me to be a bit more organized, and that's how Airtable was introduced. And so basically all of the different things that I've introduced over time have been there to solve one problem or the other. And even though it is quite layered and quite complex, I try to build as little as possible. And the only criteria that I have for adding things or updating things is number one, will it help freelancers get more work, which is like the most important thing. Number two, will it save me time? Or number three, will it make the site more money? Because if it makes the site more money, then I can spend more money on getting freelancers work. And so that is pretty much, and I'm very strict about it. So like, I try to build as little as possible. So if I feel like it doesn't tick any of those boxes very clearly, I don't touch it. And so,
So would you say that,
yeah,
would you say that on a given, unless you're like building a new feature, what is the breakdown of working in no code tools to hook up your stuff and build versus marketing or administration? Like what percentage, how does your time break down?
Okay, so like a typical week when I'm not working on the actual platform, a typical week in the Unicorn Factory for me is I wake up in the morning, I look at it for like 10 minutes to like basically review any like emails that I got or help that I need, and then I pretty much do nothing. On the 20th of every month, I go and review all applications, which is basically I go through there and I switch a button from in review to approved or to waitlist or to rejected. I try not to reject people, but you know, like if they put effort into setting up their profile, I'll approve them. I'll give them a shot. But that's pretty much it. On the 20th, I dedicate probably like 35 minutes to like approving people. Then I barely have any like bugs to fix because I barely have any features. So the less features you have, the less you have to manage. Occasionally I really don't do that much work on it. Yeah.
But marketing, like you said, you have your student that you've hired that does all the social media marketing.
Yep.
But you don't do any other marketing for it either.
So I actually automated all of my marketing as well. So I just do like paid ads. So all of the traffic that is generated comes through Facebook ads and comes through Google ads. I just outsource that work now as well. Not because I do enjoy doing it, but like it is quite time consuming. Basically, I create an ad for every landing page that we have. And so we've got a bunch of like Google search ads. So whenever someone types in something like logo designer Wellington, like we show up. Our SEO is really good, but it's just Google search ads. So I just got someone in to like write me the Google search ads. I'm pretty sure they just use dynamic variables as well. So like they're like responsive search ads where like whatever someone searched basically populates in the search results. Then we also have like some Facebook ads, which I basically created like a bunch of graphics that of different freelancers and basically have like a little value proposition. It's mostly a brand building exercise, and a majority of the money that I actually spend on Facebook ads are retargeting ads, which basically means anyone who found us through Google but didn't actually like message a freelancer, I just show them my ads just to remind them, hey, come back. And that is fully automated as well. And
now,
so,
is this your marketing experience talking, or you hired the person who wasn't getting work on Unicorn Factory and they helped you come up with this strategy?
So I knew how to do all of that. So I come from a Facebook advertising background. So I actually thought, hey, this is like my edge when I got started. I'm just gonna like get us to the top through Facebook ads, you know. But so I started doing it. To be honest, I haven't touched the Facebook ads for 2 years. I give like Mark Zuckerberg so much money and I haven't actually updated our ad creative forever. Like it still works really well. Our Google ads are somewhat important. So I do have someone who knows what they're doing come in and basically touch them up from time to time. But I keep it very simple so that there are not that many moving variables that you need to update consistently. And so, yeah, like in a nutshell, it's kind of like a set it and forget it type system. And, you know, once in a while, if I feel inspired to like do update some of my ad creative, I'll jump in there. With our social media marketing, to be honest, I never really did any social media marketing. I think the most important thing with social media marketing is being consistent. And I'm just like, I don't know. I can't motivate myself to make like a social post on Instagram every week. Like I'm just not that person, I don't think. But the personal assistant that I hired, she was like, hey, Connor, can I do some of your marketing? And I'm like, sure, what do you want to do? And she's like, I really want to like get into like Canva and doing Facebook ads. And I was like, sure. And so I bought her a course on Udemy, and I was like, just watch this and just do what they do in the course. And we just went and did it, and she loves it. And so basically the understanding that I have with her is her job primarily is to make sure that that she can free up my time. So I don't want to have to deal with like support emails and all that kind of stuff. But whatever she wants to learn and do for the business, I'll support her with that in whatever way she wants. So if she wants to learn how to do like, she started getting into blog writing. So I got her like a little SEO course. And so she just basically teaches herself, implements it in the business, and it's really good.
Wow. Does anyone else have, I've been rattling off questions. I don't know if there's anyone else has questions or things that they want to chat about. This is where we
I have a few.
evolve or devolve.
I have a few. First one, besides for being in the same time zone, what is the benefit of hiring locally that you see?
To be honest, I just wanted to, I remember, to be honest, that I was just like, it would just be nice to hire someone in Ottawa. Like, it wasn't particularly important to me that they were locally, but you know, I was just.
No, I mean for Unicorn Factory, like, what is the benefit of building like local marketplace for essentially a digital work, right? Why not use arbitrage for that? And
yeah. So, I mean, like there are a lot of businesses. So, I mean, like when we look at like our space, like tech companies, people who work in tech, we're probably quite comfortable hiring someone off Fiverr and Upwork. But there are like a lot of like local businesses that prefer to work with people locally because it's maybe like a family business, is a bit more personal. So the majority of the businesses that hire freelancers on the Unicorn Factory are like law firms or bakeries or those types of businesses. And they just don't have that trust with like big international platforms. Plus, you know, it actually takes work working with people overseas. You need to be a good async manager in order to make it work. And a lot of these people have like no idea where to start. So really what they want is someone that they can like jump on they can call them on their phone. So not even Zoom calls. Well, they want to call them. And they want to be like, hey, can you like, you know, update our blog or whatever it is. And that is something that you get from the local experience that I don't think is that easily replicated with like async type marketplaces like Upwork and Fiverr.
Okay, with that, would you rather see people creating essentially copies or replicas in different states and what have you, or would you rather build Unicorn Factory into something global that then you can filter based on your location?
Yeah, so I've actually created the Unicorn Factory in Canada, and I think that, you know, even if you do have like a very local focus, it can still scale into different areas. And so when I started the thing about it is when I started the Unicorn Factory in Canada, I had to start from zero. So because like people don't know about the Unicorn Factory in New Zealand, and more importantly, they don't care about the Unicorn Factory in New Zealand. But like you can take a lot of the things that you've learned about building the Unicorn Factory and you can just execute on it a lot faster. Which means that instead of scaling your company like that, you're actually just scaling your processes up into different areas. You know, when you move into different locations, that's a whole different story because you deal with different types of like mechanisms about markets and different cultural habits and those kind of things. But overall, I think I don't have these like grand visions for the Unicorn Factory to one day overtake Upwork or anything like that. To be honest, I'm just like, you know, if I can help people like land freelance jobs, like then that's cool. I really got like a lot of satisfaction from doing it in New Zealand. If I can do it in Canada, cool. You know, like my virtual assistant, she signed up to it. You know, I block all of her inquiries because she's too good. I can't afford anyone to.
Rachel, edit that part out. Rachel.
Yeah, she keeps messaging me. It's like, Connor, I keep seeing that I get notified about jobs on Slack, but they never come through to my email. Then I removed her from the Slack channel. But you know, it's actually like a really great feeling to be like, oh, you know, like, here's like an opportunity to at least maybe not get the actual job, but to jump on a call with a client, have a conversation with them. That's sometimes all they need to get started. And I've kind of set it up in a way that it doesn't really involve a lot of my time. And so I kind of want to see how far I can take it before it becomes like, unenjoyable. But so far it's been pretty good.
Yeah, I can see a need for something like that in the place where I live, because there is not many big companies. People are not used to it, and there is a lot of small businesses, let's say 1 to 5 million in gross, or solopreneurs, soloists that can really use that. So I guess I'm kind of wondering, would you rather expand and see Unicorn Factory going, let's say Colorado, or would you rather see someone build something similar?
I mean, like, honestly, there've been heaps of people who have built similar marketplaces to the Unicorn Factory in other areas based on the videos that I make. And I absolutely encourage people to do it. I've even had a freelancer on the Unicorn Factory create a freelancer marketplace using my tutorials. So
there you go.
You get the whole shebang,
Didn't you have someone rip you off? Like take your site?
Yeah. I mean, I had someone who not just they basically scraped my entire freelancer list from the site and emailed all of them. I'm not even gonna go into it because it just comes with the territory, and I'm not particularly precious about ideas, if they're here's how I look at it. If someone watches my tutorials and then builds a freelancer marketplace in New Zealand, and then they end up building a better freelancer marketplace than me, then I have a whole different set of problems, if I am that easily overtaken, then honestly, it's if it wasn't them, it was going to be someone else. But I honestly encourage people to do it. I mean, I think that building small little marketplaces or directory sites is a really, really great little business to build. You can do it just on the side for fun. You can do it if you want to make it a bit more of a serious thing and you want to put in the time and money. You can actually make good money off them as well. And so, yeah, ultimately, I encourage anyone to do it, whether it's a freelancing website, whether it's I've helped people do it with charities, a Unicorn Factory for charities. People do it for hire private football coaches. It's everything. It's so many opportunities to do it when you pick a very particular niche in a very particular market, and they scale quite nicely. So yeah, if you want to do it in Colorado, please.
You've reached that status. Go ahead, Rachael.
I was going to say that was very diplomatic, but in reality, did you just kick him out that Slack channel as well?
Instantly hide all of my YouTube videos. Now, I actually help people. People email me all the time being like, hey, how do you do this, this, and this? And I actually tell them, because I'm kind of there've been so many people that have helped me. And like I said, I was very much inspired by Webflow experts, which means it would make me an absolute hypocrite if I was like, yo, don't steal my idea. Because everything is kind of like a remix of something that has come before, I don't know, maybe Webflow experts was inspired by something like Upwork or something like that. And so everything kind of builds on top of each other. And I actually, want to support people, give those types of things a shot because it was really great for me. And so I'm actually pretty confident that if someone is really committed to doing it, that it would be really great for them as well. And I don't want to be the person who discourages that.
Totally. Where did you learn from predominantly when you were in the early phases of stitching things together and learning Webflow? What were your resources?
YouTube. So I mean, everyone knows Pixel Geek.
Oh yeah.
I mean, honestly, Nelson is a legend. I went to the No-Code conference 2.5 years ago, and I don't get starstruck a lot, but when I saw that guy in the flesh, I was just like, holy shit, there he is. But no, I honestly the Webflow forums and Nelson's YouTube channel was kind of where everything started. And to be honest, when I look at other, I don't know that much about other communities, but one thing that I can say is for anyone who was especially for me, who was just getting started in an area that I was brand new to, there are really like no dumb questions. Like you can ask the most basic questions in those forums and people will still give you like a decent answer. And the good thing about it is I think because the first few people, and I can actually remember a lot of those people that were in those forum answering those questions, because they do that, it actually creates this like effect of then other people being like, oh, I have an answer to that question, and then responding. So it has that kind of like snowball effect of people helping each other. And that's kind of what you see on like Twitter now. Now everyone is like, you know, everyone's like Twitter support on like, you know, on like Webflow topics and stuff like that. Not the Facebook group. The Facebook group is the Wild West. Stay out of there.
So I've got a technical question and then I have 2 group questions.
Okay.
The first question I would, from a conceptual level,
Mhm.
Can you walk me through the process and tools that you use once someone who like has an account, they've logged in, and they want to update their profile, they want to update their image, they want to update something, they want to update their info.
Yep.
What are the steps there that you're doing to allow them to do that?
Yep. So I can't show you my Airtable base because I've got a whole bunch of email addresses in there, and because it's recorded, I have learned the hard way through YouTube not to publish email addresses. But I'll show you what happens behind the scenes, and then you can kind of visualize what's happening in Airtable. So there are actually a few ways to do it. One of the ways that you can do it is either through the Glide platform that I set up. So I'll take portfolios for an example, just because it's here. If, for example, someone wants to update like a portfolio that's in their profile, they click in here, it opens up a form with like the image and the video URL, all that kind of stuff. Then what they can do is they can like make their changes and then click the submit button. Now, what Glide does is it automatically updates this record inside of Airtable. Okay, so you'll see, for example, if I change this to like this, you'll see that in Airtable, this record changes. So the domain will change. And then what I have is I have a workflow that basically recognizes if something in that record changes. So if someone's job title changes in their profile, Airtable will recognize it, and that will then fire off a webhook that starts an automation inside of Make. And so if people are unfamiliar with what webhooks are, it's basically a signal that you send to your automation app that you want to update something. Now, where's the profile one? I'll just show you the. I'll show you the.
While you're finding it, let me pause you.
Yep.
So you have a website. Now, in your case, it's built in Glide, but it could be Webflow.
Yep.
You have a form that is native to that platform, Webflow or Glide.
Mm-hmm.
When someone has opened up that form, you are loading that information, which in this case is Webflow. So it's effectively a CMS item, unless you're using a tool like Wise, and then it's living elsewhere. But this is effectively a CMS item.
Mm-hmm.
When you open the form that shows you all the data, you're putting those values into the field that is that form field. And if anything changes, then when you submit it, now you're triggering a bunch of workflows.
Yeah. So let's put it this way. Let's say like there's a Connor Finlayson record inside of Airtable. Yep. When I go and press the update button and I've changed my job title, then my main database is Airtable. That holds all my data. Then my record in Airtable, the second I hit that submit button, will update. So instead of like a certain job title be there, it will be the one that I updated it to.
Yep.
And as soon as that field changes,
then
it basically fires the webhook. And so the webhook, but this is the workflow. First of all, the webhook fires being like, hey, something updated. Then it gets the record that was updated. And then as soon as it gets the record that is updated, it converts the markdown that's inside of Airtable into HTML. Then it updates the item inside of Webflow. And then it also marks it as updated. So this is basically the step that it goes through. It's just like a few quick steps. If there are like any issues, it like stops and it basically gives me the error message in Slack. But yeah, it's update happens from the freelancer, triggers a webhook, that then gets the record that was updated in Airtable, and that then basically updates the Webflow item.
And
okay, so can I ask then, is what's the distinction between Glide and Webflow and what's being set up? Is Glide kind of like the in fact, you know what, just go ahead, answer.
Yeah, so think of Glide as like a nicer interface for Airtable. So Airtable is kind of like a spreadsheet. And also there are a few issues with this. Number one, wow, I've got a lot of Airtable tables. Okay, but where are we? Let's pick this one. It's kind of like a table, and the problem with Airtable is that people can't actually access this. Only I can access this. And another problem is it's not particularly visual. So what Glide allows you to do is to take this and allows you to kind of convert it into an app so that individual people can control their records. So if, for example, I have a freelancer record inside of Airtable, then I can convert that freelancer table into something that looks like this and give my freelancers the control to update things and stuff like that. And so
Can I quickly jump in then? Because I think I definitely understand what you're saying. Like that Glide is allowing you to allowing people in general, users, to interact with the data, and then it kind of gets set up in that way. So do you use Webflow for kind of the front end, less dynamic portion? And do you use the same URL?
Yes. So yes. So I use Webflow as the front end of my marketplace because mostly for SEO reasons, actually. So it's a lot easier to actually design the pages and stuff and make it look exactly how you want. You don't really get that design freedom with tools like Glide and stuff like that. But there are definitely like a lot of people who have built marketplaces using Glide. But because SEO is one of the most important ways of me getting traffic to my website, I need to make sure that my websites actually are optimized for SEO. And that's why I use Webflow. But in order for me to get the information from tools like Airtable to Webflow, I need to use automation tools in order to send the updated data through, because Glide is not connected to Webflow in any way. So I need to manually, or not manually, I need to automatically send it through with these automation tools. And that's why you also have to use a tool like this.
so you wouldn't actually build that update form in Webflow. You would rely on Glide.
So I actually did, before I tried Glide, I actually did have it in Webflow. And so the reason why I didn't want to explain how this part works is because it's like very hacky and how I used to do it. But basically, you'd like click on the update button and you just fill out an Airtable form that would then override the original information.
Okay.
That did work, but like it causes a lot of confusion sometimes, because sometimes people you know, mean to like only add one particular skill. And let's put it this way, it's a bit clunky. It works, but it's a bit clunky because you're actually overriding records and stuff. So Glide just makes it a bit more of a smoother user experience. Glide has its own issues, so I'm not like fully advocating for Glide in terms of it being like the end all be all, but it does make the overall user experience for doing things like updating profiles, updating things like portfolio items a little bit smoother, which is why I'm experimenting with it. I'm not fully committed to it. Like you said, there are a few additional tools coming out at the moment that might allow for certain things like Wiz. Then there's majestic 2.0. No one knows what's going to happen with that, but that might have certain functionality. And so,
well, there's also Logic in Webflow
and
there's
memberships.
Logic and Webflow, I think is going to be cool. I had a little play around with it. They allow for webhooks and they allow to send out actions. So if you can code you can pretty much connect it to whatever app you want. It's actually very similar to how Airtable automation started as well. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Airtable automations, but Airtable, which is a database tool, they built their own little automation tool. And when they brought that out, I mean, like, they basically didn't allow you to do that much. Like, they didn't have, even today, they don't have that many native integrations. But you could basically connect it to a webhook, which basically means you can fire any event in any app. And you can also make HTTP requests, which is basically you can send information to any app you want. So technically you're not limited. Webflow memberships, I mean, Webflow memberships is going to be good for specific use cases, but I mean, there are some pretty good tools out there that have been around for a while. And so I think it's like, wait and see what happens with Webflow memberships. It's still in beta, so I think we need to give them a little bit of time.
I was going to say, notice what I'm reading between the lines here on what.
Hey, we've got Corey in the room. We've got to be.
Oh, we've said plenty worse in front of Corey, and trust me, he said worse himself.
Yeah.
I probably have similar opinions.
I saw Corey grinning him. He's like, you better not say anything wrong.
I want to be cognizant. So Aces has a question in the chat that he said he wants to build an e-commerce marketplace selling digital goods. And he's looking for a solution to store those digital goods, store those files, and allow people to download them after purchase. And then he also wants analytics on assuming the purchases.
So, funnily enough, I think that is actually one of the use cases that Webflow memberships might actually be good for. So like, you can basically sign up and hide content behind like a paywall essentially. And so Webflow memberships allows you to do that. So if you can get access to the beta, I'll try it out. It also connects to Webflow e-commerce. So like, technically you don't need to get all of these different tools. You can just use that, experiment with that. Analytics, everyone always asks for analytics. I mean, like, that's a tough one, if I'm honest. Like, analytics is a tough one. You can embed analytics, but it's quite technical. Like, the way I do it is I connect my Google Analytics account to an automation tool that basically every single night at midnight pulls in the amount of page views that a freelancer has had. And then I store that number in Airtable, and then I put that number onto a dashboard. I can actually show you what it looks like, because when I learned how to build that, I was actually quite stoked with that I made it work. Where is that? Where is it? So, not here. So technically it is possible, but you are already operating in like the very advanced realm. I actually think I have if you want to see how I do it, I actually have a YouTube channel about it, but a YouTube video about it. But you can basically see how many page views you have at any given time, and it pulls that information from Google Analytics every night. So if you got that set up, you can kind of pull that information in, and that's coming from analytics, which is going into Airtable, and then this data here is coming from Airtable into Webflow. Yeah, correct. Yeah, okay. Yeah, correct. I actually have like a step-by-step video on it. I think it's how to build an analytics dashboard in Webflow, I think it's called. So if you want to rebuild it, it's there. You'll have to use a tool called Parabola, which at the time when I made the video cost like barely anything. And now I think they only have like high ticket e-commerce clients. So, you know, the prices have gone up a bit. So here's my question for the group. I have two of them. I think we all use tools, right? We all probably are using Webflow or Airtable or whatever it is, right? And I'm wondering, like, kind of want to get a pulse of how often, or what does it take to get a new tool into your arsenal, right? What is the threshold for you to say, you know, like Connor's working with Glide. And he threw it on, I think Glide was on a slide. So it's made the presentation, which means it's a big deal. So what does it take for you to get to a point where you're like, okay, not only am I going to test this, but I'm going to play with it, and now it's working in there. And so that's kind of a question for the group. If anyone has any thoughts, round robin here, or if
I want to start there.
A tough question, Kyle.
I'd start by saying, if I have a client, or if someone comes out with a new web design tool, I pretty much won't look at it. Like, I'm not now, unless it has like if it's a glide, or we talked about Softer the other day, the other meetup, unless it's a very like solving a particular use case, then I'll look at it. But when it comes to like web design, and like, I want to build a website that is very design centric, and I want to be able to do whatever I want, I'm not looking at anything else, because I've found my tool. So the threshold for me to like move to there was a site that a friend sent me the other, like, I'm never going to go to like Squarespace, right? Yeah, I've been there, done that. And so there's certain things that I will never try, but I think I'm open to trying fringe tools that kind of like fill little gaps for me, like I'm interested to check out Placid. I'm curious in that. I'd try Glide, because it's like, I want to visualize. I like interfaces a bit, but I don't love Airtable interfaces. So I don't know. I'm curious if anyone else has any thoughts.
I'm curious to hear, Connor, why you switched from Zapier to Make.
I was saving that one too.
Well, shall I dive into that one, or should we go for? Yeah.
I feel like maybe there's a way to amalgamate both of these questions.
Yeah.
What was it that made that transition feel like, now it's time, now I'm going to look into this?
Okay, so first of all, are there any Zapier employees in here right now?
Corey Moonlights with Zapier too.
This kind of does tie into Kyle's question. When I look at what kind of no-code tools I want to adopt into my stack, like, obviously I showed you a slide that has like 15 different tools on there, which makes it look like I touch every single tool that I come across. But I'm actually very strict about like adding tools to my stack, because like, you pick the wrong tool and you're screwed. And so what I typically look for is there are actually a few factors. Number one is, do I actually need it? Like, do I really need this thing right now? And 80% of the time you just don't. A lot of the tools that I adopted was because they solved a very specific problem. Zapier saved me time, because I didn't need to like do manually fill out the CMS anymore. MemberStack allowed me to make money. Airtable allowed me to clean things up. And so all of the other tools that I've added for a very specific reason like that. So that's number one. Number two is like, how good or how reliable is it right now? So like, like a whole bunch of people are like dying to jump on like Webflow memberships, but it's like in beta, it's still very early. And it's the same thing with tools like MemberStack 2.0 or Wiz 2.0. Those tools might have like heaps of promise, but if they are currently at a stage where it just doesn't work properly, but there are heaps of bugs and all that kind of stuff, then I'm not going to take that into my stack, because like, it can wreck things in my actual real business. And then the last thing that I look at is I actually look at the founding team, like the people who are involved with it. And I kind of try to get a sense of like the direction that they'll want to take things. Because like, if you have someone like, for example, Joe from Finsweet, that dude lives and breathes Webflow. I mean, like, I was never like, I think that the Finsweet tools can sometimes be quite technical. And so learning something very technical requires a certain level of commitment. And so I was always kind of a bit like, how is it going to work if they don't make money off any of these tools? Like, how are they going to do customer support, all of those types of things? But what they have done over the last few years has just shown me that like, they are like a really good long-term bet to have. And I'm not going to call out anyone specific, but there are definitely examples of businesses where it's like, it feels like they're in for the quick buck. And like, as soon as like, things don't go the way that they thought it was going to go, or their pricing doesn't work the way, they kind of completely disregard what's going on with their tools. And you can't rely on tools that basically can suddenly go from costing like $10 one day to $140 the next day, because like the founders decided that, hey, we're no longer going to be focusing on that market, we're focusing on that market. And so I look at those things.
So are you moving away from Webflow with their new pricing changes?
I am, honestly,
sorry,
we're done. We're done with it now. So to answer your question about Make or Integromat, when I used Integromat the first time, there was a lot of hype around Integromat. It was kind of at the same stage as like Zapier. And I went into it, and the thing was buggy and confusing to use. I'm not going to lie. It was not good to use. You would set up this like massive workflow and you wouldn't hit the save button, and like 45 minutes worth of work would just be deleted. And I had so many experiences with Integromat where it's just like, I cannot believe that they are getting away with like building something that just doesn't work. But over the last like 2 years, Make has gotten better and better and better. And if you just compare Zapier to Make just allows you to do more stuff. They're more flexible. They account for a lot more different use cases. Now, what Zapier really had going for itself is, number one, they're the most well-known automation tool in the world. Maybe them and if this, then that, depending on what kind of niches you operate in. But like most people use Zapier, so they kind of get a head start. But without trying to be too critical around everyone, because building like companies and software is incredibly hard, and it's all comes from a place of love. I just don't feel like Zapier has done anything in the last 2.5 years that have made me think that the next 2.5 years are going to be any better. Like they haven't launched any new features that have made using Zapier better. If anything, it's just gotten more expensive, which by the way, I don't mind, because in the grand scheme of things, you do get good value for those tools. But Make has just overtaken them in terms of what you can do with them. And it takes a lot to switch from one tool to the other. You have to make a huge commitment because you have to move all of those workflows that you've got in Zapier over to Integromat. And after seeing what Make was doing, I was just like, you know what? I think long-term, they're a better company to bet on for the Unicorn Factory. And so I switched over, and I do not regret it. In fact, I've started teaching people who like do like my course or whatever to use Make over Zapier. And all the original videos are still in Zapier, but now I'm saying to them, like, I'll actually just like jump on a call and I'll show you how to do it in Make.
Did you deal with customer support from Make at all? What do you think about it?
I honestly have, so I just don't even, like, I am just trying to picture those poor people in the customer support teams. And I'm just like, I don't want to pile on top of it.
Yeah.
But the way that you can get like really good customer support is by getting involved in like Slack groups that do things. So like I get a lot of help from like peers, people who run YouTube channels, and just getting in there. Like as long as you like have like a good balance of give and take and like share things that you figured out or help out people, you can actually get way faster customer support by just talking to those people than by trying to email them. And yeah, I'm
asking because I recently tried to make the switch from Zapier to Make, and I was dabbling in it, and then I ran into a problem and I tried to reach out, and there was like very little response and support. And my one gripe about Make is the name. Make is a really stupid name, because if you try to search for anything related to Make, it's a headache.
I know.
What the hell? Integromat was so much better as far as name.
The branding person had no interest in SEO.
But anyway, that's my 2 cents on like switching from one tool to another.
Where do you think is the best place to learn Make?
I actually think I think YouTube is a great place for any no-code related things. I think I do like good content for like beginners, but there are also a whole bunch of other people who make really good. Man, so there are actually some people who have like YouTube channels with like 70 or 80 subscribers who make banger tutorials. And I always feel so bad about like not having their names ready for these types of occasions. But I actually, there was this guy who was making these like, he had like a channel with like 5 YouTube videos all about make, and he showed.
Oh,
some,
yes. I've
No.
seen it. And wasn't he in your Code Meets No Code community?
No. So that's Martin. He has some great stuff. His channel is Automation for Lawyers, I think. It was someone else. He made these like make tutorials, and I was just like, I think they were Integromat tutorials at the time when I watched it, and I was like, holy shit, this is so good. This is like, he really sold me the dream here. And I forgot his name. If I ever find it out, I'll put it out on I'll put it out somewhere. But he had some phenomenal tutorials. I think ultimately what you want to do is pick a use case and just try and build it, and then just build on top of it. I think even like watching, like if you specifically want to see one, maybe even consider, I wonder if that one that we did, Colleen, we did that in Zapier, the one with Placid. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
Placid kind of like Banner Bear.
Yeah.
Yeah, just cheaper.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, maybe even just try, you can do the same thing in make.com. So maybe try and rebuild it. If you know Zapier, you'll get the hang of make reasonably fast. There are a few little intricacies and stuff, but
I had a situation where, what was I trying to do? I just like couldn't figure it out. It was like error handling where when something didn't, I wanted to update a member in member stack. So I had them in Airtable. I wanted to hit a button, and then that was going to go, and there was going to add that person to member stack. But if that person was already in member stack, then I wanted to update them in member stack. And there was something like I couldn't search through to figure out and determine whether or not they were already in member stack. And so I ran into this situation where I was trying to either update or add depending on whether or not that person was already in member stack, and I couldn't, and I was tripping over some things.
Yep. So those are the things that I struggled with as well. So I'm going to post a link to a Slack channel in here called the Slack channel is called Make Makers. I'm not actually sure if I'm allowed to invite people into it, but hey, here you go. But basically is this guy called Jake. He works for 8020, which is like a no-code agency, and he's like a make savant. He's like, whenever I have make problems, I am like, Jake, what on earth am I doing here? And so the whole channel is basically around, hey, how to do certain things in make. And so when it comes to things that Zapier can't do, for example, routing, error handling, you know, all those kind of things, that's when you want to like just jump in there and ask, and someone will point you in the right direction. And so, yeah, he's gonna wake up and he's gonna have like 10 more people in his Slack channel. He's gonna be, where did all this come from? Yeah, ClickUp as well. He's not getting.
I think I sent you to him in the first place, and I send anybody who asks about Integromat.
I think that's a referral cut for everyone headed over.
Yeah.
You know, I find this conversation, it's really underscoring this observation that I've had from like hopping around these different meetups, because Zapier and Make comes up all the time in the no-code crowd, because everyone, for the most part, people use one or the other. And I find it really interesting that you said that, you know, the track record of Zapier over the last couple of years doesn't leave you feeling enthused enough to like kind of bet on them for the future, because there is this complete like, it's very utilitarian. So many people know how to use Zapier. So many people use Zapier, and nobody talks about the tool with any real love. No one is talking about it like the way they talk about Webflow, or the way they would talk about, I mean, in some cases, Make, because I've heard a lot of people recently talking about these great solutions that they found in Make. So it kind of, I don't know, it makes me think that maybe what you do to keep your base forward thinking and satisfied is like be really innovative with things and changes, because it kind of like whets the appetite of the people who are still there as well as people coming in. I don't know, just an observation that I found. Like, I don't know, maybe Zapier should be worried if they don't have a fan base that has any real fanaticism behind it.
Yeah, I fully agree. And you know, that actually like reminds me of like, I always see like Squarespace and Wix sneaking their ads on my like Webflow videos.
Get out of here.
And
It's true.
And one of the things that I always think about those ads is they've completely misunderstood what people love about like Webflow. They're constantly like trying to like beat you with like features, you know, they're constantly being like, would you host your website on something that can only have like 20,000 people? They do like, they go for like the hard metrics that they know people complain about when it comes to Webflow, but they completely miss the point. And the way that I kind of like look at Webflow and like a lot of these other really good tools is that they have the best designers in the world using the tool. And that is what draws people to it. It's something that like, you know, like a lot of people who are in the design space, they get attracted by that because like, you know, all of these people who build these like unreal websites, like even if you go and inspect the code, it's always made in Webflow. And like everyone on Twitter is talking about made in Webflow. And so like a lot of, I think you're like, right. It's like the more love you have for a tool, and that love comes from the tool actually allowing you to do amazing things, the more you're going to have people actually like A, advocating for it, but B, also showing off the work that they're doing. And I kind of feel like, you know, people are doing some pretty phenomenal stuff with tools like, you know, Airtable. So Airtable, I think, gets a lot of fandom as well, especially like from the automation and database people. I think Make, not so much yet. But maybe it's because it's not really like, you know, what are you going to show off? Like take a screenshot of your massive, like I mean, like, honestly, if anyone has any Twitter channels where people post like screenshots of their workflows, let me know, I'm following it. But like, you know, it's not, you know, I don't think it's at that stage yet, but they're heading in that direction for sure.
What other tools do you think have that love?
I think anything that Finsweet's doing is right now. Like, I mean, honestly, to be honest with Finsweet, I was never like a 100% sure if I wanted to make that commitment. I am like 100% changed. Like their products are so good. Like I built like, I redid my blog the other day and I added like a table of contents thing to my site. And I was like, it was so easy to set up. I was just like, what is going on? And there's actually something that they do that is, I think, like a little secret to like really smashing it with no-code tools. And that is that they make really good tutorials.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That is actually what motivated me to start trying stuff out with Glide, because they have phenomenal tutorials, you know? And so I think if it's not so much about, you know, explaining to someone how to build a button, but how you can build a certain type of app with your tool, you're going to get people in. And I think Finsweet with their streams do like a phenomenal job. But one of the things that I think people forget about sometimes is Emmanuel. He makes a whole bunch of tutorials. His tutorials are phenomenal. He can teach anyone like how to get started with Wiz. And so that's why I really think Finsweet is going to be, anything that they do is going to be a good one to bet on. I had to play around with Wiz. Wiz is really technical, but it will give you so much flexibility.
2.0 or 1.0?
2.0. I tried 1.0 and I was like,
because we did a whole meetup on Wiz and we checked it out. And I remember talking to, is it Jonas? Is that his name?
Yeah, yep, Jonas.
I spoke with him and he was like, we're trying to release this 2.0 in like 3 weeks. And like 4 months later, they're still working on it. But he was making it sound like, oh, all the stuff that bugs you about 1.0 is going to get fixed. Like maybe you don't even worry. And so that's good to hear that 2.0 is.
I mean, yes. I mean, like they fixed a lot of bugs. I don't find it buggy, or as buggy, I'd say, but it's very technical. Like I found it technical. It's really like, it's low code. It's like, it's the closest thing that you'll get to code. They've done a good job with it, but they are going to heavily rely on tutorials in order to get people going with it. It's very similar to like Airtable scripts. Airtable scripts is phenomenal, but it's like, you need to make that commitment, you know, like to want to learn it. Is
there a coding element to Airtable scripts?
That's yeah, it's like JavaScript inside.
It is just code. Yeah.
Anything else? Just Java?
JavaScript, but it's not, I mean, it's pretty much JavaScript, right?
Yeah.
They've got their own, but it's.
Yeah, I to be honest, I actually don't know that much about it. I like Aaron and I do run Code Meets No Code, but like honestly, I don't know that much about scripting. I've learned a bit about scripting and stuff like that. I can write like scripts for like Webflow and all those kind of things, but when it comes to like the lingo and stuff like that, I'm just trying to think, wait, how do they do it in Make? Oh, okay, so I need to figure out how to write an if-else statement in code. And so yeah, so it's all a learning journey.
Yeah, it's JavaScript, but then they have their own like syntax that they use for like grabbing bases and grabbing tables and records and
So it's Airtable appropriated JavaScript.
yeah.
It's pretty cool. It's
I would say
love that. Yeah.
I would say one I hear a lot of love about, like people won't shut up about it, is Bubble.
Mm-hmm.
So to anyone who doesn't know,
I'm kidding. I looked at Bubble. We did a presentation on Bubble, and I was like, "How do people?"
I was just like in a bad mood that day, and ever since then, every single meetup he talks about how much he hates Bubble.
I hate Bubble.
You know, I think Bubble gets a lot of hate, justifiably. So
yeah,
you know, Bubble is cool, but like Bubble, I think Bubble was trying to do a lot real fast. And I was always kind of like, man, this looks like a card house, and you're just like one wrong move and this thing is coming down. And so there was like a period where there was like a lot of like trash talk going on Twitter between like the Bubble people and the Webflow people, because they would be like
in the Webflow crowd.
Yeah, they would be like, oh, you need to use like Airtable and Zapier to make your thing work. But it's like, you can't even make your websites mobile responsive. Like, can we stop here for a second? But you know, like more recently, I've seen like a lot of those people who were like right at the forefront of talking trash about Webflow, making like comments about how bloated Bubble was getting with all of the unmanaged plugins, and that would put so much fear into me, because that is exactly why people don't like WordPress, you know? And so they're unmaintained plugins, and because those sites wanted to basically have like every integration in the world, they basically just let everyone add something, you know. And now you've got all these like unmanaged like plugins. Yeah.
But isn't that what Finsweet's doing? I mean, they're not creating all the plugins in the world and doing all this, but they are creating tools that are effectively extending the functionality of Webflow. And I'm like you, I love what they're doing with like, you know, filtering and sort, you know, and their whole CMS and their attributes and all that stuff. I'm great. But I think we're supportive because we really like what they're doing. But hasn't Webflow kind of opened up a little bit so that if you're technical enough, you can create some of the stuff? Or am I misunderstanding what Webflow is allowing developers to do when they tie into their API?
Well, I think that Webflow, I don't know. Okay, so I mean, if I like compare what Finsweet is doing to what some of those people are doing with plugins on Bubble, it's like two different things.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Finsweet is the Bubble plugin people. I'm talking about extending the tool's functionality. But
yeah. So essentially, yes, and it's not just Finsweet. I mean, like Reloom library with copy and pasting over components, and like there's a whole bunch of things. So yeah, essentially they are doing it. The thing about it is I think it requires quite a lot of technical knowledge in order to be able to actually pull off what they're doing, which means you don't get bloated with anyone and everyone who's got like an idea on a weekend for like a Webflow plugin. And I think most importantly, at its core, Webflow stays Webflow. It doesn't get negatively affected by like a whole bunch of plugins that people might be using on the site, or at least not directly. So I don't know. I kind of think it's like they do allow you to have plugins, but ultimately it's still Webflow as a standalone tool, whereas Bubble is a bit more tied into like stuff that other people build. I don't know.
And maybe it's that all of the code needs to render out to HTML and JavaScript and CSS, and it needs to be like, you can't have all these dependencies, because it's when you publish it, you know, it's effectively going to you know, clean files that aren't, you know, so maybe that's part of it. I don't know.
Yeah, it goes a bit about like how they do it. It goes a bit beyond my technical understanding. But I mean, ultimately, I think when it comes to what they're doing, they're just building like tools that they're using internally in their agency, and they're just sharing it with us. So I know.
Yeah, because I look at the you know, they have the menu where they like added their icon to the left sidebar.
Yep.
You click on that and then you get your attributes, right? So it's like a browser extension,
Yep.
right?
Yep. A Chrome,
And so
it's a Chrome extension, yeah.
Chrome
Or like a
extension, yeah.
browser.
So I look at that, I'm like, so could someone else, you know, like could someone else make a browser extension
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
that then does that? And so now if other people were motivated to create this Chrome extension, couldn't you effectively add more and more things? Yeah, there you go. Oh, you've got one right there. Is that the Reloom?
No, that is Flowbase.
Flowbase.
Yeah, so yes, people can
Ooh.
do it. Yeah. Flowbase was actually the first to do it, I think. So Flowbase came before them. Yeah, so I don't know why not, because I think that they allow you to access their like API. Again, it goes a bit beyond my technical knowledge, how exactly it works. But I know that the Finsweet team and the Webflow team have kind of like worked together on it a bit, but I don't think that it's like officially get access to this by Webflow. I think technically anyone can do it, because the Flowbase extension is just a Chrome extension that you need to like log into, and then that basically loads inside of Webflow when your page loads. So yeah.
So I wonder from a philosophical standpoint, or from like a future facing standpoint, if Webflow is thinking about these browser extensions and how they would want to make sure that it doesn't turn into a bubble marketplace, a WordPress marketplace where things are just, you know, now you've got so much junk that's filled the space that you don't even know, you can't trust any of the browser extensions, you know?
Yeah, I don't know how much Webflow can actually control this, to be honest. Like, I might be completely wrong, but I think that this hack can happen outside of Webflow's influence. Like, I might be completely wrong about it, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't. Webflow, as of right now, can't stop that, I don't think, because this is not like an official plugin. Maybe Corey knows.
I know,
Corey,
we're sitting here waiting for Corey to chime in.
All I can say is, from my observation, is some of the things that they're like doing to like, you know, like an example is like folders, and you like change a whole bunch of classes and then save and then it'll refresh, right? Like some of the stuff that they're doing to actually like manipulate what is being rendered in the designer is via like an API that is not public. They went snooping, they found it, and then are using it, right? And as well as like Flowbase and some of those. So like it's and I know there's even some like concern or caution around Chrome extensions are just, no matter Webflow, Gmail, it doesn't matter. Chrome extensions are very risky in terms of security, because you can inject all kinds of stuff into a site with them. And so that's, I mean, even part of like, you know, Webflow would never advertise the Chrome extensions or anything like that, because we don't necessarily want to encourage people to use that. But all that to be said, I mean, that's why a lot of things have been spoken of in streams and things about more of an ecosystem that's coming to support this in a much more official stature, so that people don't have to hopefully hack around all of this. And then like the other thing I'd say around like Finsweet products specifically, especially things like attributes, is like if you don't include the Chrome extension, almost every single thing they do is front end only. It has nothing, there's no actual like integration with Webflow. It would work on a static HTML and CSS site, right? Like it's just JavaScript that's running on the browser, right? Maybe there's something like, I'm not sure if they're like, I know JetBoost, for example, comparing JetBoost and attributes in terms of like filtering and all that. I think JetBoost actually is like getting all of your data from the CMS and caching it so that it's like really performant. Whereas I'm not sure that attributes does that. Again, all that to be said, like all this stuff's happening on the front end. None of it's like directly integrated, but you know, maybe there's a day where it will be. And I think like two other small things related I was going to say earlier around products is one, which Connor, maybe you mentioned this, but like Make and Zapier, come on, cost. If you didn't mention cost, let's go. Make is like exponentially more cost effective in terms of at least like if you have a lot of flows and so, or at least for like me, I don't, run mass amounts of things. So I just need like a decent amount, whereas Zapier's like free account, isn't it like 50 or something? Like it's like such a ridiculously small number that it's like, really, like you're not doing anything to help people that are trying to bootstrap and do stuff. And for me, that's like a big factor when I'm looking at products. Like, what's it going to cost me to even like get it off the ground enough to be usable and in place? And I think the other side of it is like, just especially even this is related to like Bubble and Webflow, is like, I think what's really interesting about tools that take off and seem reliable and scalable, like Airtable, Webflow, even Make, some of these, is like they are leveraging concepts that have existed far before themselves. Structured databases, HTML and CSS, HTTP requests, webhooks. They did not invent these things. They're not proprietary. They are part of the web and the way all of the web works. And they're just making them more accessible and powerful to everybody. Whereas Bubble is very, very proprietary. Like ultimately, yes, it's all compiling and rendering down to some amalgam of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But like the way you create all of it, there's all these like and I'm saying this, I'm not an expert, but just of videos and things I've watched out of curiosity, so much of it is proprietary, like where they're just trying to reinvent the wheel about how you style a page. And like Connor joked about, you can't even make a responsive site. In my opinion, that's part of the reason, is they're like trying to come up this whole new way. And it's like, why? Like, why? Like, I know I'm biased, but I think CSS is like literal genius in the way that like it's seen, like just the way and how scalable and powerful it is, really at its core and complexity. I don't know.
I agree.
But,
By the way, I actually wanted to ask you something while we're here, while we're talking about plugins, because I did you hear about this? Kind of just like went through my Twitter feed. It came and it went again, but it got pretty feisty real fast. There was this plugin that was created for Webflow that basically allowed people to get around having to pay for hosting for Webflow.
Yeah, why am I drawing a blank on the name? Kyle, you look like you're gonna say it.
No, I was gonna say holy shit.
So it was this.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's one of many that have come up.
Okay. So in a nutshell, basically, from what I understood was happening was it was an app where they would charge you like $10, and they would basically scrape your CMS and your site, and they would then host it on their own thing, and that way you didn't have to pay for Webflow hosting. Is that about correct?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like this is gonna drive me nuts. I can't think of the name. I'm searching through my Twitter DMs where I've messaged people about it in the past. Yeah, I can't think what it's called, but yes, that's exactly what they were doing, is like they would just watch anytime your site gets published and then go, I think probably look at the sitemap or something to then scrape all of the HTML, CSS, JavaScript assets, everything, and then deploy it to GitHub, where then you could deploy it anywhere else, which like in a way at its core, is not like the end of the world, but it does go against Webflow terms. Like it's like very explicit in Webflow terms that you cannot scrape our sites, right? Because like there is the other side of this, that like people like reverse proxy their sites to be able to like do multiple Webflow projects into one domain, for example. But the difference with that is that it's not like scraping. You're still paying for hosting because of CMS limits and all that. And that's what was ironic is about this product, is like they advertise that you don't have to pay for Webflow hosting, but the fact is, if you wanted to use the CMS past 50 items, you still had to pay for it. So like their angle was not all, but some of the benefits that they could do and operations they could run on the code once it's in GitHub. So they would like add more lazy loading functionality for like videos, things like that. But like 90% of the things you could do natively in Webflow with just some JavaScript. Like it was all, they would market it as magic. They literally called it like whatever it was called, magic. And it's like, oh, drove me up a wall. And long story short, then like they were also like trolling the community. So they'd like specifically find people that would like post, hey, I want to try Webflow, what should I do? And then they would like, I don't even know if they had bots or something set up, but they would like very, very, very actively post and target these people. Like, don't use Webflow hosting, just pay for us. And it was, yeah, whole thing. And they got shut down, but it's fine.
How would you go about shutting down? I mean, this is a random thing, Like, how do you shut down a website? Like, what does Webflow sends them? Probably sends them a cease and desist or something.
I don't know, candidly.
mean, Just take
Yeah,
some out
I
of
don't
that,
know.
some money out of that community fund and hire every single lawyer in that country. I mean, that was pretty filthy. When I heard that, I was like, because the thing was, how this all got started was all these people who were so angry about Webflow being like, hey, sorry, we have to stop this. I'm like, why would you host your client websites on a tool that is clearly like doing something that as soon as they get caught will get shut down in a second? It's like, yeah. Oh, good times. That was a good time on Twitter. I do love myself good Twitter drama. You usually don't get a lot of Webflow Twitter drama. Usually it's a Webflow Facebook drama. That Facebook group, I'm telling you now, I have to just reiterate, it's the Wild West over there.
So
I
how many
wasn't allowed
groups?
into that group?
Say that again.
Oh, I wasn't allowed into the Facebook group. I applied and they were like, no. In fact, I've had a really bad run at these social groups because LinkedIn tried to kick me out too. And then I got back in. And I snuck back in. But yeah, like anyway. So
how
I
many
don't like
groups-
Facebook. I don't like that group anyway.
How many groups, channels, Discords, Slacks, circles, like are people are you guys all actively a part of?
I don't even know.
More than
couldn't tell
5.
you. Oh,
I'm-
yeah, easily.
I
More than
have
10.
quite a few, but it's not active on all of them.
I think I run more than 5, to be honest.
Yeah,
How do you guys have time?
I don't.
Oh.
Don't.
So
I tried to check the Finsweet Slack yesterday, and it was like I had 44 unread, messages in one channel within that. It was like, okay, I don't think I'm going to be caught up here.
It's like visiting those Slack groups. It's just like visiting distant family members. You pop in occasionally, you say hello, how are things going? You ask why this and this isn't working inside of Make, and then you depart again.
and then you get annoyed when someone says, "Hey, channel," and you're like, "Why do I have to come to this party? I don't want to come to Thanksgiving." No, because like there's the Minneapolis Discord that Dustin that you set up. There's there's the No-Code Slack, there's the Webflow Slack, there's this Make Slack that you just sent. I can't keep up with it all. And so then I feel like I'm just an absentee. I'm like a voyeur. I just am sitting there watching. And then when I need something, or I'm like, oh, I actually have a question, then I feel like the fraud who's like, I'm just using this group for their brains because I never contribute otherwise because there's so many channels and I don't have enough hours in the day. Is this just my anxiety and my,
No.
okay.
I'm
Yeah.
part of so many groups that I don't even feel guilty anymore. No, but Kyle, you make YouTube videos. Just jump into them and promote your YouTube videos, and then that can be like your contribution for the week. I mean,
know,
like
right?
honestly, like
Happy.
honestly, the way I kind of approach it is like, I get tagged in a lot of posts, and so like, if I can answer the question, I'll answer the question. But honestly, like, I don't use all of them that much because I've got all these Slack channels. I've also got all of these circle communities.
Yep.
I kind of use the circle communities like libraries. So like if I have a question, I can just like search for a particular topic. If I want to talk to someone that I know knows a lot about the topic, I'll just message them on Slack. I'll just be like, hey, can you help me with this and this? So I kind of use the platforms differently, but I kind of I don't use like Slack as like a daily resource. It's kind of more like if I want to chat to someone, I know that they're in that group. And to be honest, out of like the 10 Slack groups that I'm a part of, the people that I typically talk to are part of like all of them anyway. So it's kind of like
The Venn diagram is just a big circle.
pretty much.
So then are you in Discords?
Nah, I had to give up on Discords. I mean,
Oh,
like,
wow.
ultimately, you don't really get a choice because people, like, send you invites to things being like, hey, come on. If you want access to Wiz 2.0, you need to join my Discord. Sure, I'll create an account.
Yeah.
So, like, I am part of, like, a lot of Discords, but, like, I don't like hang out in them a lot, to be honest.
So Slack and Discord, we'll call it, but maybe probably Slack. Slack is if I need to talk to someone, I talk to someone on Slack, but I'm not necessarily there for the general chatter. Circle you're using for a library because there's been chatter and you can more easily search for things in Circle as like a reference.
Correct.
And then are you using, are there other channels that people are using to stay in touch? Like, are you doing a lot of chatting on your YouTube channel?
Nah, I try to stay away from the YouTube channel. You get some comments on there that are very demotivating sometimes. So I try to like stay far away from the comments. Oh, no, not in a bad way. No, I find it more comedic than anything. But I don't really chat with people. I get a lot of emails from people who watch my YouTube videos with like, hey, can you show me how to do this, this, and this? Which I actually don't mind at all because that gives me video ideas. I also, I mean, Twitter, I'm not big on Twitter. I don't like posting a lot, but I do like read a lot of Twitter. So occasionally like people message me on there. But yeah, overall I try to just, I kind of limit it to Circle a bit and I limit it to Slack for very specific occasions.
I get comments on my YouTube videos. And then, yeah, like you, I get people responding. And when I first started, I was like, I'm going to respond to everyone. And then I tried to be really good about it. And then stuff would come back and it was like, you realize that you're like, you could spend hours and hours just helping people troubleshoot their issue with like how they have, you like teach them how to do, and then and it's just like what I said, like you taught me how to do some make stuff. And now I'm going, well, how do I do it when I want to like update, but then maybe sometimes add, and then, and it's like, you could spend hours helping people with all their stuff. And then you realize like, I'm just like doing my paid job for free after I already did my paid job for free, making the YouTube video, it's hard to keep up with. When the thing I didn't anticipate doing YouTube was how much work it like can be generated from doing YouTube videos.
100%. 100%. 100. Honestly, even today, like if you start a YouTube channel, okay, I'm not even gonna go on about my example because like for me it was like really good, but an even better example is my wife. So she works in the government. Okay. So she's got the most like bureaucratic job that you can think of. Okay. She used to work for the House of Commons and now she works for someone else. She set up a little YouTube channel where she taught people how they can land jobs with the government. So the government hiring process is like a full-on nightmare. Okay. Like you have to, it's like answering like all these like random ass questions and it's like impossible to get through. And so she started making YouTube videos explaining to people how to get through each stage of the process. She also made this like little mini course in Webflow that she sells for $49. She made it once, she filmed everything in a day. And then she occasionally puts up a YouTube video when she gets questions from people in her YouTube videos. And she now has like 800 subscribers and she has made like a lot of money on the side just from people buying her course, because like people like watch her video and go, oh, wow, she's like the selected one. She's like the chosen one when it comes to getting a government job. This is the person I am going to trust to land a government job. And the funny thing about it is like, you probably know yourself just through like making YouTube content. Like I make shit up on the go. Like half the time I don't even know. I kind of figure out what I'm going to talk about in my video as I'm trying to use the tool. I'm like, oh, wow, that's fascinating. Interesting. I should definitely make a YouTube video about that. And so it's usually within a span of 15 minutes of me discovering how to use like a router in like Make that I'm already making a video about it. But then people are like, wow, you have all the answers about this particular topic. And now the same thing has happened to her. And now she's like being invited to speak at like conferences on how to land a job with the government. And she's got like a full-time job. She like makes occasional YouTube videos on like a Sunday. And so I think anyone can like literally start with it. And if you like put like a few videos out there, put like some good titles in there, you'll be like on fire. Like honestly, it's like so much opportunity there.
it's intimidating at first. And like, does she put her face on the thumbnails?
Yeah. I
You
make the
know,
thumbnails though, so she doesn't get a say in that. No, it works. It works though.
That's the thing, is like when I started, I was like, I'm gonna do these, I'll do these videos to help. Yeah, I can do this. I know some stuff. I'll do it.
Mhm.
And then you realize you're like, if I'm spending the time making these videos, like I better I better do what I can to get people to watch them. I'm not making them so people don't watch them.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden you go down this rabbit hole where you're like putting your face on, that was a big thing for me. I was like, all of a sudden my face is out there. Like, I'm not trying to be like YouTube guy. I'm just doing this every once in a while. And then you get into like, what can I do to like manipulate the title? And I should put chapters in, and you're trying to, you realize it's a rabbit hole. Then all of a sudden you're buying lights for your background, and
and then
send
you
me a
realize
link
all
on
your
buying some
problems
lights.
then you knew that it was just the lights that was the issue. That's all it was. Oh man, like honestly, the whole YouTube thing is like a whole situation in itself. I actually, the biggest problem that I have found with YouTube is like, I started getting bored with my content. And I was just like, I don't find this stuff interesting anymore. Like, I do find it interesting, but you forget that sometimes when you spend so much time in the tools, that like what's obvious to you is like, it becomes like, it's kind of like, this is like, I know everything about this, and like, do people really care how to do this and this? But one thing that I found is whenever I've put like a video out there that I found is like, oh my God, this is so basic. Like, because I always kind of think I'm trying to make content for myself. So I need to put a banger out there, that shows you like the most advanced craziness. But it actually turns out that the simple stuff is the stuff that works the best, because people are just like getting into it. But I was kind of like, I did the whole YouTube thing as like a personal challenge, make like 2 videos a week for a year. And as soon as I hit like video 104, I was like, we are done. Thank you very much. But I got so much work and business from it. It was like that. It's now I'm kind of like, now I know what they call it, like the hamster wheel, because once you're on it and you can kind of see like, man, one YouTube video results in like X amount of like website visitors, which results in X amount of sales. It's like, stop whining and make a video around how to update Webflow CMS items in Zapier.
Right?
It's boring as it might be. You just have to do it.
Well, the other thing too, what I've noticed, so I've got a video that is using form. I do a lot of form stack and like form stack documents and document automation and form building. You can take this part out, Rachel, but I think form stack is like a tool that I reluctantly use. Too many clicks, but it's actually very powerful. But anyway, my top video is like form stack 101. It's the basic stuff. Now, my second top video, what I would say, or one of my other top videos, is custom Google Maps in Webflow. And it's complex. You got to do all this stuff. Form stack outperforms it. Maps is right behind it, but I get so many more questions and annoying, like, can I do multiple custom thing? And it's the complex things end up in a lot more work and problems and issues and things that you've got to like help people troubleshoot. And so like what you're saying is the simple stuff actually gets just as many views, but you don't have the issue of people with really like time consuming questions.
Yeah. Even though you can always opt to not respond to the time-consuming questions.
Well, as everyone who's emailed me has found out.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, I was actually having this chat with Colleen, because Colleen, she makes YouTube videos, and if I were to start from scratch right now, I would pick one tool and just become the go-to person for it. And there's so many new tools coming out right now that you can literally make like 8 tutorials on like Wiz. Like how to render an Airtable list in your Wiz project. If you like make 8 of those videos, because there are no other videos out there right now that do that, you will become that person. And then what you can do is you can just simply say, hey, if you need some specific help with your like Wiz project, schedule a call with me, and you can charge like $200 for like an hour-long call or something like that. And before you know it, it's like the ball's rolling, So I think like I would always, by the way, I still find making YouTube videos uncomfortable. Like when it's published, there's like, it looks pretty polished, but like honestly, like, you know how many times I say, hey, welcome everyone, welcome. Oh no, I can't say. Hello everyone, welcome. Oh, hello. Well, my wife literally walks in and goes, do you want me to do the intro?
In an hour and a half.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, so I think like this is the one thing that I never really realized until I got into it. You like watch these YouTube videos and it looks like everyone has these like amazing presentation skills and like I'll never be able to do it. But no, it's very, very well edited videos.
Oh, I can't tell you how many times I've done it, like, because I use this thing called Descript. If you've ever heard of Descript, basic, yeah. And so I use Descript, and that's how I edit my videos. It's super quick to edit. And I can't tell you how many times, like, when it transcribes your video, there's just like, that fucking sucked. Oh, fuck that. Like it's me just like, all right, let's go again. All right, here we go.
Yeah.
It's just like me just being annoyed at like, why can't I say this string of words?
You should just make a video that's like 47 minutes long of all of those added together. I mean, I don't know who would watch it. Probably not me, but I think you should make it. And can I open up a question to everyone then? This is barely relevant, but whilst I have all these amazing brains, bye Dustin. Whilst I have all these amazing brains here, you know, the YouTube channel we currently have running for this, that's going to be putting this video up, you know, we have like these thumbnails that have the, you know, various gradients every week. They don't have people's faces on. Now, I know that the go-to way to like people just say like, this is how people view it more if you have faces. My inclination is that this is like not the Kyle and Rachael show. It's a community gathering. I want to emphasize the fact that we're having a conversation, and you know, a lot of the time it's not even us doing the talking, you know. So like what would be like, should I get over that and just put our faces on it? Is there an alternative that might work? Do you know? Like, I don't know, Connor, do you know? Have you looked this up? Are there things that work really well?
Well, I mean, I think especially for a format like this, one thing that I'd do is if you've got like a long recording, cut it into clips and then put people's faces on it. So like if there's like, obviously you need to ask people to use their faces, but say for example, you want to have like a little clip of Corey explaining how Finsweet's about to get shut down the second you just put like the most clickbaity title, you put like faces work because people, I don't know the science behind it, but I've definitely seen a correlation between people clicking on things with pictures and not, because there was a period where I was kind of like, oh, I don't really want to, like, what's the point of me doing like, and then like, what is this? Am I like a 14-year-old child having to make these faces for my thumbnails? But like the fact of the matter is like there's actually a significant difference in like click-through rates. Also, I would say, yeah, do it, because people will recognize you over time, and that counts towards it as well. And so, to be honest, like if you're like not 100% sure, I would actually just copy what some other people are doing with their thumbnails. I make mine in Canva. Like you can even get like a nice photo and just like do like a cutout of the photo in Canva and then put like a screenshot in the background. Like things that work really well for thumbnails for like tutorials is screenshots of like the apps. Like when people see like a Webflow screenshot with like a logo of like Wiz, it's like people smash that button so fast. It's like they're in there. And another thing that I was always personally very uncomfortable with is clickbaity titles. I'm like, I always thought it was a bit cringe, and also it's like, is this like, you know, is this good to be doing this? But clickbaity titles are only bad if you're not actually telling people what you have put in your clickbaity titles. If you say something like, these are the 7 best Webflow extensions that I use, and then you talk about your Airtable course, I mean, of course, people are not going to like that. But if you then actually present 7 like Webflow extensions, then it's perfectly fine because you're actually giving people what they asked for. And so I think that is one where I see a lot of people being like, I'd rather not do anything clickbaity. If you struggle with like clickbaity titles, put a question in there you think someone would ask, you know? For example, you could make a clip, what are like the best no-code tools coming out in 2020? And then you could just put like a screenshot of like Kyle or something like that. And then
Serving up tools.
or like a blurred out screenshot of like a tool that people might recognize or something like that, you know, just so it creates the just so you entice them to click. And I think this format is really good for content these days. I mean, like you see so many YouTube channels which are basically just clips from longer podcasts, and they turn like one podcast into like 10 clips, and that is really good for like growing your channel. And ultimately, I think on YouTube, especially when you're like below, like, well, let's say you're in the hundreds for subscribers, quantity over quality all day of the week. Like you will just like my videos, when I look back at them now, I mean, at the time I thought they were like masterpieces, but now when I look back at them now, I'm like, oh my goodness gracious, the audio quality is like dreadful. I didn't have any background lights, but ultimately those videos get you up to like 2,000, and then the videos start getting better, and then they start getting better, and then eventually, you know, you'll just have like your rhythm of how to do it, and yeah.
I would say that I noticed, and I've taken, my foot wasn't really on the gas. It was more on like just the, like I was in first gear. I was trying to do like one a week. And I definitely notice that when I am putting out content more regularly, my numbers grow, like they respond to that. And if I've ever taken a break, I took like a 6-week, 2-month break recently, and things just slowly start to lose inertia. And you still get it, right? It's still going, it still goes up, but I definitely noticed that quantity over quality is when it comes to subscribers.
Question, what are you using for what program are you using to record in?
I've got one. This is perfect for anyone who is like not like, okay, this is the perfect tool for anyone who's never filmed a video before. This is about to be the shout out of the century, but honestly, I have no problem giving these people shout outs because they are honestly awesome. It's this tool called Tella. And I make all of my videos in Tella, like all of my YouTube videos, all of my little course videos, basically anything that you can think of, I make in Tella. Now, here's how it works. It kind of works very similar to Loom. You basically click on a new video and you can then connect your webcam to it. So you just jump in here. Because I'm already using my webcam on Zoom, this doesn't work, but you can connect whatever camera you want and so on. And then you just start recording. Now, the cool thing about this compared to Loom is that you can actually add multiple clips behind each other. So this is like the last YouTube video that I did, and I just basically created all of these different clips. And so like the problem when you're recording it off your camera, if you like record something, you get it wrong, you have to later do it like in post-production, you have to cut out all the stuff. Here, what you can do is you can actually just record that particular scene, which is very good for anyone who just needs to develop a rhythm for how to deliver certain messages. It allows you to basically record the first part, then move on to the next. Now, another thing that's really cool about it is you can add layouts. So for example, if you're doing a screen recording, you can actually just display your screen like this and it looks really nice. But let's say, for example, you want to mix it up a bit and you want to put yourself into the corner. You can actually just click this little button here and it gives you all of these different layouts that you can have
in post.
So this is before you even publish it. So you can just basically say, okay, in this particular scene, I want Milo face in the corner. Or you can say, I want to be like really big on the side here or whatever it is. And so one of the things that makes videos very interesting is if you're mixing up the scenes a lot so that they look different. So you've got like a headshot, you've got like a screenshot, You've got like this side view, and that way you're kind of keeping it interesting because the view changes all of the time. And so once you're done recording all of your clips, what you can do is you can then export all of your clips. And this is not necessary, but I export them as separate clips. And then it basically gives it to you in a zip folder with all these individual little clips. And then I take it, put it into Final Cut Pro, and I basically trim the edges of the videos so that they align nicely. And then I also do some little post-production thing with the audio. I put some music underneath it, and then you're pretty much good to go. This here is like honestly the best tool to use if you want to just make like a simple YouTube video, like because it doesn't look ghetto like it does when you're using Loom. You can make it look quite professional. If you have a nice-ish camera, like say you have like a DSLR camera, you can actually connect it to your computer as a webcam and make it look like this. And so it doesn't require you to like get out your SD card, import it into Final Cut. How do you do this? How do you do that? It's just complicated. This is like a really like quick and easy way to create content.
What's the process there when you go from, okay, I'm gonna run through and make my intro, and you try it like 6 times? Are you starting, stopping, starting, stopping, starting, stopping 6 times? And then you go, those first 5 I didn't like, and the last one I'm gonna keep.
I just go until I've set it cleanly.
And then how are you trimming that clip in Tella?
So my intro, so in Tella, I don't really do that much trimming. Like you can, but I just export it and I just do all the trimming in Final Cut Pro because I can like zoom in on the clip and stuff like that.
I see.
But I don't need to cut out any like things that I said wrong, because I can just re-record that one particular clip until I get it right. And so like the first clip that I do is usually, in this video, I'm going to tell you about how to build a dashboard with MemberStack. Then I stop there. Maybe I'll re-record it if I didn't like how it sounded, but then I move into the intro, which is, hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video today, I'm going to be talking about how you can build a Webflow MemberStack, blah, blah, blah. Do that part, stop that clip. Then I move on to the thing, which is kind of like what I call the overview clip. And so I basically say things like, what I'm going to be showing you in this video today is number 1, what you have to do inside of Webflow. Number 2, how you set it up inside of MemberStack. And number 3, how you connect MemberStack into Webflow. And then I break it down into individual chapters. And then I just do like screen recordings where I go through each one of those things. Actually, funnily enough, I never had like a real system to for it until I did a talk at the Webflow conference and we got speaker training. Corey was in it with me. And they basically said, it's all in 3s. 1 topic, 3 sub chapters, and within those sub chapters, 3 points. And so that's kind of how I structure them. It's like the easiest way to do it. You don't need to overthink it, and I know exactly what I have to do.
So your intro that you,
super quick question, Kyle. Sorry, because I know you're like mega into this. What was your editing software you use?
I use Final Cut Pro.
Final Cut Pro. Okay. Cool.
One thing about Final Cut Pro is like the Webflow of like video editors. It can be a little bit intimidating. It was for me because there are a lot of buttons and stuff. I did this Skillshare class that was phenomenal. That basically taught me everything that I needed to know about Final Cut Pro. It's called Ali Abdal's Final Cut Pro Guide. I don't even know what it's called. I'll look it up now. I'll put it in the chat. But what I would do is I would film a video in Tella, then watch that Skillshare class and just do what he's doing on his video on your video while you are doing it, because basically all you need are the clips and you'll be able to like go through all of the individual videos and you'll really be able to do like a lot with it.
Oh, it's an Apple app or an Apple software. Okay.
Yeah, they're also free ones, so you have to pay for Final Cut Pro, but they have a really long trial. So if you just want to see whether or not it's worth trying out, I'll check it out. There are also things like, there are also free ones. I think there's one called DaVinci Resolve. Like I'm not exactly sure what everyone else uses, but Final Cut Pro has been good for me.
so have you ever used Descript?
I have.
I Okay, what'd you think? You were just if on it. Yeah, like fair on it.
I was kind of like, Descript is kind of cool, but I had so many issues with their like Mac app that I was just kind of like, I had issues with the syncing and stuff like that. And I'm kind of like my philosophy about making videos is like quick and filthy.
Yeah.
I mean, if I have to like sit there and like figure out why my audio is not synced and why
When did you use it? When did you use it?
Probably like I give it a shot like every like 6 months because I know that it's a very powerful tool. So I like to revisit them to see how things have progressed.
Because literally I sit down and I will like, I hit record and I'm not like, I liked how you could do the different, it's like, it's saving your video and your screen at the same time. And then you get to decide once you've recorded it. Is that how you get to decide once you've recorded it, what it's going to be?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and
like that's really cool.
Yeah, that is so time consuming in
Yeah.
Final Cut Pro. So you have kind of like these predefined layouts.
Yep.
And it just saves so much time.
So I go into Descript, I fire up a new recording and I decide whether this is just going to be like a straight on just me or if it's going to be me in the screen.
Mhm.
And I sit and I hit record and then I just talk. I do my intro and I do it like 10 times, right? And then I get through that and I'm like, okay, well, the next time that I'm going to be just on the screen myself is going to be the outro. Okay. So I'm going to say, hey, thanks before I've even done the tutorial, I'm like, thanks for watching the tutorial. Hopefully you thought that was helpful. If you did, hit the like video, subscribe to the channel, blah, blah, blah. And we'll see you at the next tutorial. And then I'm like, okay, so those are the only times that I'm going to be on the screen. Okay. So now let's go into the screen share. And so I'm just letting it run and I mess up and I screw up and I always start each section with the same few words. And so once I stop recording and it goes and Descript transcribes it, I can see that like, oh yeah. So the next step that you do, and I'm like, okay, well, I know I did about 8 of those. So I highlight everything. So the next step, and I take out all that. And now my video is edited. I don't have to go into Final Cut. I don't have to take it anywhere else. But the problem is, so that gets me my nudging, in like Final Cut, you do the nudging tools and the scraping and you like trim the edges and all the stuff. That gets me my sections all set. And then I'm like, well, I've got videos that are my intro and my outro, like the little like No-Code Collab. I bring that in. So once my video is recorded, I can probably have it completely edited and published to YouTube in like, depending on how much I'm writing for like the little description, I could probably have that done in like 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I've found that I really like that workflow, but the thing that trips me up is if you want to do anything like putting things on the screen, or you want to show like what you've typed, or like you want to do anything extra, it's a pain. And that's where Final Cut probably shines.
Yeah. I mean, like, like with no-code tools, the price that we pay are the limitations of the tools. There's always going to be something,
Do you have a tool that you use that zooms in on your clicks and like quickly zooms in on like what you're showing or displays on the screen what you've typed?
Nah. So Tella's pretty new. They're like a whole bunch of things missing that they're going to add in the future. But I don't know. I don't get too worried about it. I'm kind of like, yeah, I mean, like, there are like some videos that I've made where I look back at it in hindsight, I'm like, yeah, that is very not clear, or like, I'm like, my head's over like the part where I'm like typing in some very, like, it always happens when I add like custom like data attributes in Webflow, like my head's just over it. So I get like a million like comments, oh, we can't see what you typed in there. But Tella kind of fixes that a bit, but I don't outsource my editing because it's too basic to outsource. So yeah, I don't know. I try to keep it like super, super simple and high level. Yeah, maybe one day I'll do fancier stuff, but ultimately it's like, we're teaching people how to update Webflow items with Zapier. So, you know, it's all, if you get like the high level gist of it, it's mission accomplished.
Are either Corey or Connor, are either of you speaking at the conference?
No, not this
Oh.
year.
I told you that I basically saw this presentation in 2019.
The one that I did.
I saw I was at your, I asked you, I was at your at your Webflow conference 2019, your presentation.
Mm-hmm.
I asked you a question. It's
Remember that guy who hackled you?
yeah, I stumped you with a question.
I remember Kyle.
I was gonna say that earlier, Kyle or Connor. You mentioned like, oh, I saw Nelson in 2019. I was like, you spoke at the conference. Don't be so humble.
Nelson saw you.
That was
I
like
remember-
honestly. Oh yeah, you go.
I was just gonna say, I remember people coming out of your talk and being like, "Did you see what he built?" Like.
Do you know what the funny thing about that was? First of all, that was like the most surreal experiences of my life, because like in New Zealand, there were not like, we didn't have like a thriving no-code community. I wasn't very active on Twitter, so the only people that knew about what I was doing with the Unicorn Factory were my friends who were developers, and they were waiting for that card house to collapse. They're like, oh yeah, let's see how long your drag and drop tools last. And so when I came to the No-Code conference, I mean, oh my God, like, I to be honest, I was so lucky to get that opportunity. And so like, I applied to speak at the Webflow conference this year and I didn't get it. And I think I was kind of like, I was kind of gutted about it for like a few minutes, but like, honestly, the people who got the opportunity to speak at the conference this year, they are going to love it. And I am so stoked for them, because it can really be like life-changing stuff. And like, for me, all of this YouTube stuff and only happened because of that conference, because I honestly thought like, who cares about Webflow, Airtable, and Zapier other than me? You know, I'm like, no one cares. And then like I got there and I remember before we went to the conference, someone like messaged me being like, hey, if you're in San Francisco, we are like all gathering by the pier or something to like catch up before the conference. And I went there. That's where I met Rayma and Aaron and like a whole bunch of other people. And the trippiest thing about it was like, I sat down next to this guy. He runs this platform called it's like this mentor matching platform. And he was like, hey, I built this platform using Webflow, Airtable, and Zapier. And I was like, you what? And he built this. I thought I was like the only person who was building it with like those tools. And then like he like gave me the rundown, and he's like, yeah, I managed to like manage like marketplace payments and stuff like that. And can you explain how you did this and this? Then I had this like in-depth discussion with Aaron about like something about naming conventions and Airtable. And I was just kind of like, these are my people. And you know, and so yeah, I mean, like going to that conference was like unreal. Like I must honestly say it was like a life changer. Like, you know how you have like some events in your life where you're just kind of like, that changed the trajectory of things, you know? And I was doing like heaps of Facebook ads before that, and I was kind of like, okay, I wasn't loving it, you know, like how much can you really love doing Facebook ads for people? But then like going to that conference, I was like, shit, like there is actually people who are really into this stuff. And so, yeah, I think it's like, yeah, it was pretty good. I didn't actually know what the point of it was. I just want to say how great it was.
No, I remember going, I met Colleen there, and I remember thinking like, oh, there's like a woman in Florida who's into Webflow. This isn't a lot of places, I guess. And we chatted for like 20 minutes, you know, and but then I fanboyed, I don't know his name, but I was like, it was the guy who does the tutorial videos. And back then it was just him.
Ron Segal.
No, the Webflow tutorials.
Nelson.
Ron. I sat next to him at the keynote and I was like, oh my God. I was like, oh my God, he's really small, but that's all. Like, this is the guy, I've watched all his videos. Yeah. But it was the
McGuire.
Oh yeah, McGuire.
Is he the guy who was the voice of Webflow for the first like 2 years?
Yeah.
Nelson, or are you thinking of Nelson?
Nah, he's thinking
No,
of
the actual
Maguire,
Webflow employer who
Maguire.
does.
Oh, okay, yeah, McGuire then, like where you didn't see his face either for 2 years, and then all of a sudden,
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I'm saying the
No?
guy, the guy who did the original Webflow University videos.
Yeah.
it's Maguire.
McGuire,
Yeah.
like the voice of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I would fangirl a bit if I was sat next to Maguire, like even now.
I know I saw him and I was like, I want to go up and say hi, but I'm nervous. I can't do this.
He's like
Raymond,
the ninth,
Raymond
yeah.
came to one of these community sessions one time and I was like, you know, and that was virtual. So if I ever met them in person, I feel like I'd just be really embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like it's so cool meeting all of those people, but like it's even like people like that are like here now that you meet. There's actually like the real epic part about it. Like I met like I met like a whole bunch of people that at the time I didn't know. Like for example, like Joe. Actually, side note about Joe. You know, like when Joe made his like YouTube videos, he had this like persona of being like, "Hey everyone, welcome back." Yeah. And then I met him in person, and he's like very, very quiet. And I was just like, "What? Something is like what? Like he's actually putting on like a persona for YouTube." I thought that was really crack up. But I met so many people who were like, who like ended up doing like so much stuff, who became like kind of like, you know, Webflow famous in a way. Like I Airbnb'd with Tella and Duncan from MemberStack.
Oh yeah.
That was before like MemberStack was even really a thing. I think they had been around for like 6 months and stuff like that. Funny thing about MemberStack, before they started MemberStack, they tried to sell me a build for a Webflow membership site for $10,000. We were actually like talking about it. Because they were in the Webflow forums, and I was like, someone put out a tutorial about how to build membership sites with Firebase. And I asked a question in there, and they said something along the lines of, "Oh, like we could help you do it." So I jumped on a call with Tyler and Duncan, who were on a Zoom call, and they were like, "Yeah, Jason Dark, that's right." And so I was on a call with Tyler and Duncan, and this was before MemberStack existed, and I was like, and they were like, "Yeah, we could build this for you for your site. We can build you like a little proof of concept." And I was like, "Okay, like how much is it going to cost?" And they're like 10 grand, and I was like, "Oh, you know, I'm struggling with the $25 per month CMS plan, so maybe not." But then a few months later, we like stayed in touch. They ended up building MemberStack, and then we went to the Webflow conf, and they were like, "Oh, should we like Airbnb together?" And there were like a few people there. Jason, I'm not sure what his company is, but he was at State of Flow. But it was just so surreal. The people that you meet, they're like, you know, a whole Colleen, like everyone, you know. And so it's gonna be so cool, especially now that since then, this space has like grown so much. So yeah, it's gonna be sick.
Have you seen? Because I'm thinking back on like who was at that first one. I remember MemberStack and all that. There was a company that was very active. Maybe they're still active, and I just don't see them. But there was a company that I thought was originally a thought leader in Webflow called Edgar Allen.
Yeah, they're still around. They're like
Oh
a
my
massive
God, they
agency.
still are.
They're massive.
They're big, but
Huge.
are they doing things that are like contributing to the community, or are they kind of doing their agency thing?
No, they have a whole framework like client first, like, or you know, it's like
Knockout. It's called Knockout.
Knockout. Yeah.
Oh, I haven't.
Oh yeah, no, they're like tearing it up. They've got a real focus on storytelling and content design. So starting from, you know, who the client is and all of that, not just about, you know, here's your layout and you know, stick your content in. They create the whole thing. They're doing amazing things. They've got a huge, a big developer community in South America, mostly in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Not community related, but client related. Edgar Allen does some of the gnarliest stuff with Webflow. They have this whole, like, without getting into the nerdy of it, just this like whole build pipeline approach where they can build and merge styles across projects and all this stuff. Like in a way, even like what did I call it earlier? Stack It, that Connor was asking about, that like scraping site. Like they've built kind of a thing like that, but for themselves. They're not like productizing it, right? And so they're doing some like incredible stuff, building like massive Webflow sites for big clients. It's just not all public, right? Like Finsweets or some of them are. So yeah, definitely still around.
I was listening to Mason, I think on an interview recently, and he was saying, it's like we started out just sort of doing, stuff around Atlanta. And then, just sort of the work that they've been doing the last couple of years within Webflow has just taken them all around the world.
Wow.
Yeah, and I remember I feel like they were one of my earliest memories of somebody contributing to the community in like a holistic way. They published this blog post series called like Webflow for Teams. I think they took it down since Knockout was released and all that. But yeah, it was like essentially it was very utilitarian framework approach to building within Webflow, but it was rad because they outlined not just like what it is, but how they used it, and it was really good.
Yeah, and they're working on some new tools as well that are sort of around that whole concept too.
It looks like it's still up there, Webflow for Teams.
And they have cool socks.
That's how you know that it's real,
But they have cool socks,
Yeah, the socks are a very telling thing.
Wait, what do you mean?
They've got cool socks like merch.
Yeah.
Like if you're making that much cash from websites that you can buy your own sock merch, you're rolling in it.
Well, here's what I'll say. So my day job, I do our marketing and stuff, and we have like products that our employees can buy, or you can buy for clients and things. And we're looking at expanding our merch in there, and we've decided to do socks. And there's this cool company called Sock Club. You heard of Sock Club?
Nope.
No.
Oh, it's cool. Like they've got this tool where you can go and like design your own socks, or you can have their designers design you socks, and they actually don't cost that much.
Maybe that's where Edgar Allen's getting their socks from.
Yeah. I'm seeing more socks at went to a cybersecurity event a couple weeks ago, and there were like 6 vendors there, and 3 of them had socks.
They know what's up. They know what's up.
Socks. I'm gonna probably have to hit it here.
Yeah, same. It's like 11:15. Wow. Thank you, Connor. Thank you for coming. Oh, thanks for having me.
Come back anytime. This is a lot of what we do is we have a 20-minute intro, a 20-minute talk, and then we just talk Webflow, no-code.
A 3-hour deep dive into the world of no-code, YouTube, and socks.
It's beautiful,
Yeah.
And send me, are you Phillips Hue? Is this what I'm supposed to look up?
Yeah. Phillips Hue light something. You'll see they are like shaped like that.
All right. Hey, I gotta update. I got up my game. I'll give you a shout out if I end up getting lights.
Yeah. Wait, I think I found them. I don't know. They got so many different ones. It's kind of like entering like the Apple store, It's just like you show up to buy a phone and you're leaving with like charging things and new
AirPods and all
AirPods, and it's like
home. Yeah, I know.
I posted it in the thing.
I gotta say, last night I'd gotten into bed and I pulled out my phone and it was on my calendar, and I looked and went, oh, I missed the Minneapolis event again. And then I went, no, wait a minute, that's tomorrow. Yay, I haven't missed it. So,
Thank goodness, Penny.
but it was just like, I was heartbroken. I was like, how did I do that a second time?
I want to tell you beforehand, I want to make it on Friday, but I can't. I'm on vacation on this Friday. Otherwise, I would join your No-Code North.
That's okay. That's okay. Just if you can, check out the YouTube, the Northern Showcase next week on the 28th for Bailey.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
Everyone have a great night. Connor, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see some of you in California.
Yeah.
Stop it.
We'll pour one out for you, Penny.
Stop it.
All right. See ya.
Later.
See ya,
Later.
Libby.
Bye, Libby. Bye, Fedrea. Bye, Lena.
Bye.